Hi everyone. Actually, I'm going to show you, just because I think in the interest of time, there's like about a 3-minute intro kind of video that I'm going to ask you to please bear with me and watch. It's a little bit embarrassing, but...
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then philanthropist and photographer Bobby Sager's work is by far worth a lot more.
Earlier this morning, Sting serenaded us with a song, and now he's back with his good friend and renowned philanthropist and photographer Bobby Sager.
Join me in welcoming philanthropist, social entrepreneur, and peace activist Bobby Sager.
Bobby lives such an interesting and fascinating life.
Charisma, the passion, the connection, the authenticity.
The philanthropist was in town this week.
The Global Action Market Maker Award to Bobby Sager.
I would like to welcome His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his friend Bobby Sager.
I'm so privileged to be a part of Full Right. I love this company so much. I love Bobby.
This guy is your quintessential entrepreneur.
I go to really difficult places because I'm looking for market opportunity. I'm an entrepreneur. I want a really big return on my investment. I'm going around the world to empower people so that they can change their lives and change the lives of their families and their communities and sometimes their countries.
He travels the globe, usually in some of the worst parts, to make a difference.
When was the last time someone from the United States or UK came here?
Whenever you come here, there is a great reflection of your thoughts and your views and your values.
I promise, I will never hurt anyone else because they're different than me. He took his kids out of school and he went around the world, going from location to location, starting charities, starting NGOs, starting philanthropic ventures.
We don't want to give charity. We want to be your partner in helping to make a better future.
We hope that this is the beginning of a long friendship.
I will take all of your faces and all of your hearts back to America in my heart.
Mr. Clayton will be in town tonight at the home of Bobby Sager.
What are we making this moment of prosperity? The Sager's making it their moment of prosperity. They're going around the world and helping other people. What are we going to do as a nation?
Bobby Sager is like a human typhoon. He arrives places and stuff happens.
Sting and Bobby have plans to distribute thousands of balls all over the world, any place where hope is in short supply.
Young Presidents Organization, YPO, is an international network of about 19,000 presidents whose companies' aggregate annual sales are the equivalent of the third largest economy in the world. You have members with problem-solving ability that help them to be successful in business. And the idea for us YPOs is, what can we uniquely add to making a difference in the world with business as a means to change society?
When I take a photograph, I am taking a photograph of someone's eye.
Those pictures of children were all taken in war zones. Iraq, Afghanistan, Rwanda.
You know, Beyond the Road is written by the monks themselves. I've used my photography to reveal the depth and complexity of personalities. This inclusion of science in the monasteries is the most important addition to the monastic curriculum in centuries.
Our friendship, really, the genuine friendship, till our death.
This book is profound. Bobby has spent the last decade capturing film on film in some of the world's most war-torn countries. Limited in our nature called The Power of the Invisible Sun.
When you look into their eyes, you see possibilities, you see strength, and you see hope. And hope isn't just nice. Hope is a game changer. The thing that drives me, I go around the world and I crap in holes and I sleep in tents and I do all that because I'm selfish. Because I get to live so much life and feel so much in my family. This is a natural evolution as an entrepreneur and as an opportunist to find the fullness in life.
be selfish and go help someone.
I want to start off by thanking Peggy. The people that I've met last night, last year, the year before, and the whole energy that surrounds this event, last night's event, yesterday's more intimate discussion, we can feel you in every corner and in every conversation, and all of this effort is very much appreciated. Thank you. So just to fill in the kind of blanks there, 16 years ago, my wife and I decided that's enough business. We made enough money. We only ever wanted to make money so we could have choices in life, and then it's a matter of what you do with those choices. As it said in the piece there, we took our kids out of school. At the time they were 8 years old and 6 years old. We said what we're going to do is go live around the world, staying in a place long enough and close enough to the ground to really understand what's going on, to really listen, and to really understand. And from my experience doing this now for 15 years, most of the year, for all 15 of those years, I see very often people coming into situations and not listening. And not understanding, and it almost never, or maybe actually never, works out, at least not in a sustained way. So the idea was, take the kids out of school, see if there was a way that I could reapply the same skills that I used to make money to make a difference. Knowing how to hire the right people, knowing how to make a plan, just knowing how to do deals and get things done. But the most critical part was my wife, whose name is Elaine, and I saying to one another, how do we, we've seen kids that have a lot of resources that get burdened by those resources, that sometimes even disabled. How can we use our resources to, and I know there's so many of you, I'm sort of preaching to the converted here, but there's so many of you in the room that do something very similar. How do we use the family resources to help to make the kids more thankful, more filled with gratitude? Because from our standpoint, and I'm sure that you would agree, being thankful is the absolute center of being happy. And living in in a kind of a bubble of money, and so rich people hang out with rich people, artists hang out with artists, academics hang out with academics. Everybody lives inside their own kind of bubble. And our idea was to go outside our bubble of privilege and to, if you say to the kids, we really care about the world and et cetera, et cetera. Somebody was talking about this yesterday, but you don't actually, walk that talk. Kids smell, bullshit sort of a million miles away. So the idea was, let's go into the world, let's go outside of our bubble, and as a result of that, let's try to help a whole bunch of people in a way that you can't do from a distance. So everything that we do is we make a judgment, is being there somehow extremely value added? Is there something that we can do by being on location with this particular issue or this particular circumstance that we wouldn't be able to do from a distance? One of the really kind of obvious things is hiring the right people. Just like in business, that it's really, and just like in business, all the great ideas don't mean anything unless you execute properly. So, for something like 16 years now, we have lived mostly 2 months at a time. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 6 months. In the places that we're trying to help. Countries include, I think maybe it said there, I forget, Rwanda and Palestine and Pakistan and Nepal and difficult places, difficult issues and difficult places to execute. So one of the things from 15, 16 years ago is the start of this foundation, which, and we don't accept any donations, everything's funded ourselves, so this isn't a commercial. It's called the Sager Family Traveling Foundation and Roadshow. And when we hit a place, it's a little bit like kind of a rock tour coming into town. And there's all kinds of other sort of good stuff that comes from that. The other thing that happened 15 years ago was the beginning in this organization called the Young Presidents Organization of a series of networks, and the Bohms have been very involved in, actually shown a real leadership role in this YPO organization in terms of using the organization to make a difference in the world. I don't know if people really got the statistic there. If you add together the turnover of the companies that the YPOers are presidents of, and you just sort of simplistically say a turnover dollar is a GDP dollar, it's the equivalent of the third largest economy in the world. There's about 20,000 members, about half in the States and half everywhere else. And I was the founding chairperson of something called the Peace Action Network, and the idea of the Peace Action Network is to bring business leaders together from different sides of conflicts and to have very frank, confidential discussions, and to take the insights that they learn from those discussions and also from trips that we do back into their spheres of influence, their businesses, their families, their in many cases, the national leadership of their countries. Just last week, we had a group of 25 presidents of businesses from all around the world in Iran. We've had trips to North Korea and to Cuba and to Rwanda, and these basically are sort of an inward investment seminar kind of trip, but a lot of it is just about stripping away filters and really, understanding at that kind of like eyeball to eyeball level. So in terms of the philanthropy that we do, we don't do charity, we never give handouts. Other people do that, and I'm glad that they do, but that's not what we do. We only ever help people to help themselves, so they always have skin in the game. There's always something required. We focus on execution because, as I said before, and as everybody already knows, sort of self-evident that nothing really happens without execution. And the biggest part of execution is sustainability. Because again, I've seen over these 15 years many well-meaning organizations and well-meaning people come into a place and set up something that they think could be useful without listening enough, without understanding enough, and without engaging the local people heavily enough, because ultimately it has to be their thing in order for it to be truly sustainable. And so here's three examples, just quickly, a minute or two on each, of some of the things that we do. And I don't talk about what I do because I want you to think that they're good ideas or anything. I hope that when I talk about some of the things that I do, that it stimulates some thinking in your mind about what you could do with your own passions, your own circumstance, your own timetable, and so forth. And I would encourage you to think about the fact that the point I'm making in this little video thing is the power of being hands-on and the power of being eyeball to eyeball. Because when you're looking into the eyes of the person that you're trying to help and feeling their humanity and letting them feel yours, it's a whole different math. And when you're saying to them, I'm not, because this has to do with human dignity, this has to do with sustainability, ultimately this has to do with results. So, my family's Jewish. The first program that I talk about is something called handsupnothandouts.org. And hopefully before we're all gone today, there'll be some gifts here for you. This is a program that my daughter founded and runs. She's now 24. It employs 300 Palestinian women in the West Bank, and this is her looking at, in our various trips to the region, these women in a cooperative that were making big embroidered tablecloths that would take them like a year to make. And there's not that big a market for, multi-$1,000 embroidered tablecloths, at least not in Kalandia refugee camp or in Ramallah and so forth. So Tess, my daughter, created, using the exact same designs, created bracelets that use the Palestinian design and so forth, and sells these in Fred Siegel and Donna Karen and so forth. And the lesson from this program is, I heard people talk about it yesterday, the old story about, of course, it's better to teach them how to fish than to simply give them the fish. But this is a great example of, yeah, of course it's better to teach them how to fish, but unless you teach them how to sell the fish, then all they're ever going to be able to do is eat fish, right? So in Rwanda, where we do micro lending, by being on the ground and micro lending is a great thing, but just the return of making poor people less poor wasn't a big enough ROI for me. I'm very demanding about, if I'm going to spend my time and money and security issues and so forth, it better be a big deal. So in Rwanda, I'm sure I don't have to tell people in this room, genocide and so forth, the program is women. And this started 18 years ago now, which was just 2 years after the genocide. So now there's less and less of this profile. But the program started as women whose husbands were murdered in the genocide, the widows of the genocide, would get a loan together with another group of women, usually groups of about 8 or 10, with another group of women, so about half and half, whose husbands are in prison because they committed murder. So the wives of the murdered and the wives of the murderers would get together and pursue their dreams together, and ultimately the whole point of that program is reconciliation. And then the final program I talk about is this one. This is an indestructible soccer ball. You can stab it with a knife, you can drive a truck over it, which we had. We had elephants stepping on it, they can't break it. It's made out of the same material as Croc shoes. And so this was a response to seeing kids in really difficult places play. I'm sure many of you have seen that with the balls that are sort of made out of rubbish really, that are tied together and that last maybe, if you're lucky, for a game. So the scientists had this idea to make this indestructible ball, and thought it was like incredibly interesting, and I was inspired because of a child soldier that I had met 3 or 4 years before, and I had taken a photograph, which is in this book that some of you will be getting afterwards, of his soccer ball. And so again, we don't give these balls to kids. You have to earn this ball. The only way you can get it's called the Hope Ball. This isn't there. The only way that you can get this is by going through a program that uses soccer to teach life skills. It teaches about drug abuse, or it teaches about whatever, older men, or leadership, or obviously teamwork, and all these kinds of things. And so when I mentioned the child soldier before, when I was distributing these balls to child soldiers that had gone through this program, I was able to say to them, because it's indestructible, and this is part of the sort of return again from doing something like this, the ball that you hold in your hand today, the ball that you're receiving for having gone through this program, it's indestructible, pretty much indestructible. People have said to me, yeah, my dog could probably destroy it or something, but pretty much indestructible. And as a result, think about the fact that, now these kids are sort of like, I don't know, 10 years old or 15 years old or something. Think about the fact that one day, with this indestructible soccer ball, maybe you'll play soccer with your sons and daughters with this very same ball that you hold in your hand today, to start to make that possibility tangible, to have that light at the end of the tunnel. So just to finish, the most important reason that we decided to do the kind of philanthropy, hands-on roadshow kind of philanthropy that we do, is that we wanted to have our kids grow up to be the most thankful, grateful human beings and compassionate human beings possible. A year ago, I came, and some of you know this, and I had circulated through Peggy to some of you a note that I had written about this. A year ago, I came within less than a minute of being burned to death in a house on an island near Boston, and this was about 4 o'clock in the morning, And I couldn't possibly have known when I was putting my head down on the pillow that night that just a few short hours later, I'd be fighting for my life. And it makes me think a lot about, you know, how much we take tomorrow for granted. And we all know we're going to die and all that kind of stuff, but we basically have tomorrow, yeah, you know, check that box, it's going to, you know, it's going to happen. But when you start to really reflect on the fact that, that there is obviously no guarantee about that. I'm writing a book right now, and what I'm writing about is and it's a book about thankfulness. What I'm writing about is the idea that too many of us, myself included, wake up on Monday and wish it was Friday. So we're wishing, and the math of that is that we're wishing away something like 70% of our life. And so the trick then, I don't know, maybe trick's the wrong term, but to me the response to that is, how do you, and what I'm writing about, the term I'm using is Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday afternoon is meant to represent the everyday, the so-called ordinary. And the observation is that life happens basically in between the big, you know, your birthday and New Year's Eve and whatever, that's the icing. But that the cake is the other 300 whatever days in between. And that means that you better find out how to make Tuesday afternoons as vivid and as full and as rich as possible, because that's what our life is about. And that's why I do the philanthropy that I do, because I'm trying to make every one of my days as vivid and as full as possible. And that's why I said at the end of that video, and I'll say it again now, be selfish, go help someone. Thank you.